Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Magicians Only. I'm your friend here, Valentine, and I going to get the camera perfect for my my very handsome guest. All right, here we go. And oi, how you guys doing? Welcome to Magic on the Go. I was going to say welcome to Magic on the Go. Oi, how you guys doing? Welcome to Magicians Only. This is yet another podcast episode. Are you a magician? Doesn't matter if you're not. No, I know you're not.
I thought that was to me. I thought we were aware of that.
No, I haven't introduced you yet. No.
I'm saying magicians only, and I'm bollocking.
You're a fucking comedian. What are you doing here? Traditionally, comedians and magicians don't get along. But no, I don't know if that's true. It's true. Before I introduce you to Matt, it seems like every other performer right now on cruise ships is a Matt. Say we've got Matt Stanley coming on, following me.
The classic white middle-aged name, mate.
Yes, you clearly struggled your whole life.
No.
Anyway, back to the introduction. Are you a magician? It doesn't matter if you're not. If you're into magic, if you like the world of magic, if you want to just hear the stories and meet the characters, and there's a lot, trust me, then this is the show for you, because we travel, and I do this as I travel the world. Now, recently I was talking with Matt Stellingwerf, another Matt, about working magic on cruise ships. He gave lots of great tips. All those episodes are coming up here on Magicians Only. But one of the things I like to do is I like to talk to people who aren't magicians. I know, I like to spread my wings and kind of, meet other people, because we are very socially awkward as magicians most of the time. So let me just do this up a little bit so the mic gets a little bit closer. So what I thought, I was talking with, I'm on a Virgin cruise right now, the ironically named Virgin Cruise. I haven't seen this many empty Viagra blister packs scattered on the floor since my 50th birthday. But anyway, we're on a Virgin cruise, and there's all kinds of entertainers on here, but it's a really different experience. And I was talking to the comedian on board, and he's so experienced, and he's won so many awards, all of these MC awards, Best Newcomer awards, Best Old Comer awards. I don't know if there is an old comer. Anyway, but I thought it'd be great to talk to him about like how he approaches his comedy, because really that's how you approach entertainment, and we all do that when we're performing magic. How he approaches his business, why he moved from stunning New Zealand to Manchester. And is Manchester right?
It was.
Man.
Now it's Berkhamsted.
He's in, talk about middle class. Now he's in Berkhamsted. And also kind of his experiences as a comedian, but also working with magicians. So please welcome Mr. Matt Stellingwerf.
Pleasure.
A minute, I'm going to clean the lens here because it's fucking dirty, and I look like a
Rust.
I look like a pig. Oh man, that's right. Keep recording. This will just become part of the entertainment value.
It is.
There we go. All right, you've got the good lens.
People like the homemade, the amateur vibe.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. We're actually on the. See, this is one of the great things about working Virgin, right? Is that we actually have a balcony. Yeah, we don't have a room. We just have a balcony.
There's a hammock behind you.
I know. Can you imagine the porn that's been shot in this hammock? Because
you don't have to imagine it. It exists.
You can look it up.
Google it.
Virgin hammock porn. Or you can buy a ticket and make your own. I've been on it too long. Okay. So, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the show. I'm using a new app today, and if this works, I'll talk about it later. This is a podcast app that is designed to be able to do two-person interviews. Matt is sitting in front of me. Like I said, we're on the balcony. I'll just show you Matt's point of view. There you go. Mm-hmm. That's the balcony. I get my own. I've got my own lifeboat.
A romantic view of the lifeboat.
Apparently, that fits 300 people. According 305, maybe at the beginning of the cruise. Certainly not at the end of the bloody thing. All right. So. I remember when cruising was one of many ways in which you could make a living as an entertainer. Now it seems to be one of the main ways in which we make a living as venues start to kind of like dissipate and change. Do you find, is that one of the reasons why you moved from New Zealand to?
Yeah, like the New Zealand scene is great, and it is a great like place to nurture and to start out.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what it's like in magic, but in London, for example, and I think in New York and LA and places like that, the open mic comedy circuit and the professional circuit are like not related really in any way.
In
They
any
are
way,
two
shape, or
separate
form.
things. No one from the open mic circuit is doing the pro stuff, and no one professional is coming to open mics. And it's sort of like, I guess, in an acting equivalent, it would be being an extra or a background actor
Yes.
and being an actor. In your mind, you imagine that is a linear progression, but it's not.
But it
You
can't
either
be.
do one or you do the
Well,
other.
I remember doing open mics when I first got to LA, and I hated it because you immediately realise that almost everyone in the audience is someone who's going to get up on stage later,
Yeah.
so they're judging you. The audience also judges you as a performer.
Well, they're bringers half the time.
What's
You
that?
don't know- oh no,
What's a bringer?
They're illegal in New Zealand. Our comedy union banned them, but they're very common in London and New York. Open mic nights, where in order to perform on stage, you have to bring one or two audience members with you.
Oh, so it's just a come on. It's
Yeah.
just a way to bring people in, and they
yeah.
have to buy 2 drinks or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like in some ways, it's good to have an audience there because just performing to other comedians
Is probably as bad as doing magic for magicians. Yeah.
Yeah, I walked past an open mic and a friend of mine was in there quite recently, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to jump on and do 5 minutes?" I was on my way somewhere else, and I was like, "Yeah, why not? I'll try some new stuff or something." And you're watching open mic comedians do the kind of jokes that make other open mic comedians laugh because there's no audience in there,
Right.
and you're watching it and you're going, "This is bad. You're learning the wrong lesson
That is
from
so
that."
smart.
So I was really lucky. New Zealand's a great place to start because the scene is so much smaller and more compact.
Yeah.
My first ever gig had a professional MC being paid. My second ever gig, I was doing 5 minutes, like, my best stuff that I had. And
Yeah.
I was following a TV comic doing 10 to 15 minutes of new stuff
Wow.
for a panel show that week or whatever. So firstly, you get to see how it's supposed to be done
That's
early
brilliant.
on because you
Yeah.
don't really learn anything from watching other people who also don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So New Zealand's great to start, and it's got a really cool scene, and it's quite alternative. It's quite unique. We didn't have stand up on TV in the 80s and 90s when comedy was starting in New Zealand. No big comics came to tour to New Zealand.
The big comedy clubs over in New Zealand?
No, there's one full-time comedy club. Well, there was one. Now I think there's 2. There's one in Auckland, the Classic,
Okay.
which is amazing.
So first of all, that's
legendary.
a great name.
Yeah.
Because they have the worst names in America. Or
Frankie's Chuckle Hut.
Yes.
Something. Oh, they're all
or
awful.
giggles or like ha-has, or in Canada there's yuck yucks, which to me sounds like someone's throwing up.
Yeah.
We're going to do comedy. Yuck yucks.
The Classic Comedy Club and Bar. It is, to be fair, it's a classy name, but it is in the building was a porn cinema before they took it over.
I think that's going to be a theme. As he just talks about the hammock.
And they've got some of the original carpet framed on the wall because they had to rip it out.
So nasty.
You can imagine it would under a black light. It would look like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Oh,
as the saying
it'd
goes.
be 5 minutes just shining black light around the room. It would be, yeah.
But it's a great place to start. It's a great club. In his book, one of his books on comedy, Stuart Lee describes it as one of the 2 best comedy clubs on earth, with the Glasgow Stand, which would be the other one.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay.
An excellent book, which I highly recommend. Comedy or Not, Stuart Lee's books. Have you read any of them?
I don't know Stuart Lee.
So Stuart Lee, you might remember him as Lee and Herring. They were a double act. Him and Richard Herring, who hosts Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast.
No, I don't
which is
know.
the biggest podcast in the UK, I think. And Stuart is like always on like The Guardian. The broadsheet left-leaning papers would always be considered one of the best stand-up comics in the world. He is amazing. It's quite unique style, I think. He left comedy for a while, and he co-wrote Jerry Springer the Opera, if you ever saw that.
Yes.
Which caused, I think, the UK's only like religious furore or whatever, like when it was shown on the BBC and people started boycotting it and
Not since the life of Brian, I think.
choice. Which is such a rare thing outside of America to happen. It was brilliant. It starts with an actor playing Jerry Springer and a bunch of sort of white trash characters on board, and they're all debating about like, I had a child with him, she had a child with her, I hate him, he killed my brother, like the classic tropes of that sort of television. And then one of the characters shoots Jerry Springer on stage at the end of towards the end of the first act, and he then wakes up in hell. And God and the devil have made him a deal that he can go to heaven instead of hell if he can help mediate God's family disputes
With Lucifer?
with Lucifer and all the other characters from the Bible, with his skills as a host. And then all of the same actors come back on stage, now playing biblical figures. So Mary and Joseph are arguing over a paternity suit and getting the DNA results. And Lucifer's the white trash son who's not loved by the dad. And then it continues like that. It's brilliant.
Holy shit. I wonder if that was a fever dream, that he just woke up one morning and was like...
Well, it was before the religious right started protesting it and got it pulled. I think they said they were in rehearsals for it to go to Broadway with Harvey Keitel playing Jerry Springer in it.
See, now, you would think the religious right protesting would just up ticket sales. Because I think that's what happened with Life
it was
of
a
Brian.
pre-social media world, so maybe it didn't.
Bring back Jerry Springer opera. So Stuart Lee created this.
Yes.
So I need to, first of all, I feel I'm way behind on my stand-up comics, so I need to check out Stuart Lee.
Yes.
Excuse me, I think we all need to check out Stuart Lee. This sounds like he's amazing. We need to not do open mics, or maybe go watch them just to fill you with that kind of contempt for the open mics.
Well, there's some people that just do open mics.
Is that because they only have 2 minutes of material?
Well, no, I don't even know if it's that. It's strange because you also realise not everyone feels the need to make a living out of this. They don't hate their other jobs. Because I found it really odd. I was like, these guys and it's just their social club. They arrive an hour or two before the show with all their friends at the open mic and they all chat about the latest Netflix special they want and they all do their new 5 minutes that's never going to work in front of an actual audience. And then they get drunk, You watch middle-aged people playing five-a-side football. No one's sitting there going, why are you wasting your time? You're never going to play professionally. It's it's just a social thing.
It's actually a very good point. If it's something that you enjoy doing, then you get a chance to get up on. Maybe you're the funny guy at work or
they're just happier and more content than we are. Not desperate to make a living out of it.
Certainly mentally more stable, I think. I actually saw, I remember I went to, I did one open mic at the Laugh Factory and that convinced me never to do it again. I do remember watching Whitney Cumming, as you say, pop on and on. Like she's amazing. Like she's like an hour special a year, right? She's writing. I can't imagine writing an hour of brand new material. But I did see kind of her way of working. She would go from club to club. I was out one night with some mates. She would get on stage. She'd have the new material, and then she would ask the audience, not just like where you from, but actual questions. And I think a lot of those great answers she would then massage into, like what's the one thing when you go on a date you will not do? Or what's the craziest thing you've been asked to do? And you collect those answers. I've noticed there's a trend right now of comedians asking their audiences to respond to a question live on Facebook, and then they read off the best answers. Joe Lycett does it, Jimmy Carr does it.
But it's up on the screen before your tour show. When the audience are filing in.
What a great way to get new material.
Tweet at something. Fills 10 minutes of the show.
Fills 10 minutes, and it's great for your YouTube shorts.
Your tour manager is just quickly filing through all the submissions, going racist, too offensive. Oh, that's a good one. Now quickly Google it so that's not some famous one-liner comedian's joke that they've reused. But anyway, Stuart Lee's autobiographies. Books. It's such a unique, interesting way of doing it, and I would be intrigued to see if it would work for other art forms or magicians. But basically, he's got the transcripts. There's 2 or 3 books, I think, maybe 3, and they are the transcripts of 3 of his most popular stand-up specials.
Okay.
And the book is the transcript of an hour of talking, interspersed with half of every page as footnotes about why he said that way and what experience inspired that bit of material and what happened in that place after that joke happened and what it was like recording that special. And it's just such a great way of
masterclass.
It's
everything you wanted. Because what I wanted to ask you, which brings me to the question I wanted to ask you, which is like, first of all, what was the first joke you wrote? Do you remember?
No, I cannot. I remember the first thing I said on stage.
Fuck, these lights are bright. Something like that.
Well, I had been in the theatre myself before then. So I walked out, and because what had happened, long story medium, is I'd gone along to the Raw Comedy Night, the Monday night show at the Classic Comedy Club in Auckland, the brilliant, best comedy club in the world. And I went along like 2 Mondays before I was due. I booked in my slot because I just found someone told me how to email them. I emailed Scott, the owner, and I said, it's my first gig. And he goes, well, this is the next one available. And I went along 2 weeks before that and watched it. And it was a lot of lunatics and weirdos. And it made me actually feel quite good. I was like, okay, I think I can
feel relatively sane by comparison.
I can do above the median of what I've seen tonight. Okay. That'd be great. Now, what I hadn't realised is that 2 weeks later, when I did my first one, it was the first heat of the nationwide Raw comedy quest for like the best new act, like So You Think You're Funny in the UK or whatever.
Right.
And because it was the first one, everyone who applied earliest got the first booking. So it was me, and everyone else had done the absolute maximum number of shows you're allowed to do while you can still do the new competition.
Right.
So it was my first gig, and everyone had been going for like 1 year and 11 and a half months or something like that.
No pressure.
And instead of having 20 people in the audience, it had 150. So I went from like I think of our heat, there were 10 heats of 12 people, 120 people, down to the semi-finals, which were 2 semi-finals of 10. So 20 people went through to the semi-finals out of 120. 8 of our 10 got through to the semi-finals. Like, that's how stacked. Half of the semi-finalists came from the first heat that I was in. And I told like one person, my flatmate, that I was going to do this.
And how much material did you have at that point?
Well, the slots were 6 minutes. So
you had 6 minutes of completely unrehearsed material.
Well, that's the thing about comedy relative to magic. Although, like magic, you got to get audience members up if you but you can't actually practice comedy on your own, because without an audience laughing, it ceases to be comedy. And what you learn the longer you do it is you never get better at 50% at guessing whether people will think it's funny. You think, I've done 4,000 shows conservatively, and you think by now I'd know. No better than chance. No better than the flip of a coin. I walk out going, this is going to be great. I would know. I've done thousands of shows. I know more about comedy than this audience, but that's not the way it works.
You say that line that you know is a guaranteed big laugh, and it gets silence.
Yeah, I have to go out in front of people who know way less about comedy than I do and try and win their approval about the thing I know.
So you auditioned, go back to New Zealand, you're the classic, all these semi-pros are in the audience. You've somewhat cockily decided you're going to go do stand-up. Had you done any comedy? What was you were a criminologist at one point. You grew up on a farm. At what point were the pigs laughing? Like, what point were you making jokes over bodies? Okay. Like, when did you actually, what was the time when you were like, I could do this? I can relatively pinpoint it. So I was super shy at school, as I think a lot of performers are. Yeah. Like, all of my school reports all say, very bright, I've never heard him speak. Right up until about the age of 15, 16. And then someone dropped out last minute. And firstly, I was always funny in the plays and drama at school, right? That was the one that surprised people when I was really funny. And I got way more confident on stage. Like, I remember taking the piss out of the headmaster of our school as I ran, like a guy that no one at the school had ever heard speak because I was so shy. I ran through the school and made fun of one of the phrases that he always say as I screamed it into the headmaster's face, and then ran back down and everyone's laughing. So there was that. Yeah. And then I got asked, and comedy, stand-up comedy specifically probably started, I got asked to cover for someone on the debating team. And I started debating. Quite a few comics come through debates. That's really interesting because you're debating topics. You're like, how are you going to present a topic and convince people?
You've got to write your speech, your initial thing, and then you go rebuttals on the move. You go back and forth, so you've got to improvise as well. I think it's a good skill in general.
Sounds like a good idea. All right, everyone, we should all do debating classes.
Yeah, I don't know if schools do debating. I don't think my wife's school do.
No, but I wonder if there's amateur debating groups.
Well, they have. Is it Toastmasters?
Toastmasters.
Is that the public toasting?
I know a lot of people who do Toastmasters who swear by it because it's super supportive. B, they teach you the structure of a speech. Sometimes you have to go write a bit of it and come right back in. Other times you present, and then you get critiqued by the top people.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I know there are stand-up comedy courses. I never did them, and I think they work for some people. And sometimes it's an insight into the industry. It's literally if you don't know anyone in it, you get the email of one or two of the open mic organisers or something.
Yeah.
And they tell you, when you take the mic out of the microphone stand, move the microphone stand to the side so you're not standing behind it for your entire 5 minutes. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Because obviously no one had ever really taught me any of that before I
Mic
walked on
technique
stage.
is it?
Yeah, mic technique. But
So important.
but sometimes I'm just like, you gotta. I was the same with acting. I've done some acting, and I thought about going to Toi Whakaari, which is like the New Zealand School of Drama, like the equivalent of RADA. And I was like, I like to learn it by doing it. And I think you do probably miss out on a lot of great advice, probably some bad advice that makes you generic if you're teaching generic lessons.
Individual style probably won't come through as much.
I guess the equivalent in magic would be buying the patter and using it rather than just...
Which is 90% of what you see is there's the patter that comes with the trick, which is what we're trying to avoid.
There should be, for people who want to actually be good, here is the technique of the trick, and I will provide no scripting whatsoever. You have to work it out.
It's a fine line because you want someone to understand how to present it. So sometimes on Magic on the Go, I'll teach a trick with some rough patter or some idea of the direction or why I've gone in that direction. But I don't really want people copying it. You know what I mean? I remember when I started, it was like, what do I say? Like your hands are so disconnected from your mouth. It's like, that you've got to like do all of this, like my chocolate box routine, right? You've got to do all of this procedure. It's Basil exposition for like 10 minutes. Like, how do I make that entertaining? How do I keep everyone's attention? And it's hard to teach that. But I think having debate classes, I think that's a really good idea. Improv classes. How did you do on that competition? On that?
Great. Well, I made it to the final.
Jeez, amazing.
Didn't win, which is good, actually.
That would have been great. That's like getting the Oscar on your first movie. It would have been it for you.
I tell you what, it's sort of the opposite in comedy. I think if you look back, all of the runners-up and third places go on to become great comedians. All of the winners were much more mentally healthy people, and they all win, go, great, that was a fun thing to do, and then they go become very successful lawyers or architects or something.
Okay. Yeah.
The winners never stay at it. It's the disappointed, angry, bitter third place runner-ups that stay and become comedians.
Comedians in general, yeah.
Yeah, no, it went well, because that was the first thing I said when I walked out on stage, because I looked down and I realised that my friend had told, and I had 30 people, friends of mine, and obviously the guy who owns the club didn't know who I was or who my friends were, so they were sat in the front 3 rows entirely of people I knew.
Okay, that's good.
And I just remember saying some version of, I tried to keep the secret. I told one fucking person, and he's bought a quarter of the audience. So if I die tonight, friends hate me, or some version of that. But other than that, I can't remember what I said. I can't even remember what my thought process was about what to do after it. I don't know. I don't remember thinking, I wonder I'll make this into a job.
It was just something to do?
Yeah, which I think I'd always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
In a pre-Wikipedia world, I didn't know how you started. The only biographies of comedians I'd read were Billy Connolly's and Eddie Izzard's, and they started as a folk musician whose chat between the songs got longer, and a street performer whose chat between the tricks got longer. And I was like, well, I'm not a street performer and I'm not a musician, so how do you start? Like, I don't know, you just...
Plus, Billy Connolly, we were talking, I saw his BBC Maestro lecture on how to do comedy, and he's such a genius that he just says things like, go on stage and just start talking, and every night talk a little bit more. And you're like, yeah, but I don't know what to do. How do I do it?
All the best players make the shittest coaches.
Yeah.
Because they're like, no, just pass it 80 yards across the field.
Yeah, just throw it. Just
do
do this.
What? But I'm not you. How do I do it if I'm not you?
Yeah.
Like,
I remember having a guitar teacher like that. They were just like, just do this. Just do this with your fingers. I was like, nah, not going to happen.
Just be great. I don't know why it's so difficult.
But wait, didn't you have to do a whole bunch of heats when you went to that competition? So you had to go from like...
Yeah, I did that heat.
Did you do the same set every time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's advice for comedy. Because I think a lot of people think you've got to do different stuff every time. It's like, no, perfect stuff.
Perfect the stuff you've got.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to perfect it.
What's funny is last night I was doing my show here on the ship, and I finally I have a line. It's a kind of a new bit, but I finally figured out the right way to say it. I've only been doing that for like a year, and finally I'm like, I have somebody reach in my pocket and they pull out a rubber hand. I'm like, check the pocket's empty, and they pull out a rubber hand. And I've had all these different lines, but the line I like the most is I get lonely. Well, I get lonely. And so, but it's not. It wasn't so much the words. It was like the deliver. It's always the delivery, right? So last night I went, what? I get lonely, like defensive, and that was the. I'm like, I got it. This is so good.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I've thought of funny lines for things that are years old, and you're just like, how did I? It never occurred to me. That's also asking other people to watch you. You know.
Yeah.
Which I've never really, because I've sort of, I moved to the UK, so there's no one in my school year of comedy. The people you do open mics with are the people you're closest with.
The community.
And they are all back in New Zealand. So I don't really write, most comedians don't write with other people, which seems like such a waste.
Do you write with other people or just write
No, occasionally. Like, to be honest, all of the funniest lines I've probably ever written were for other people as tags when I've watched them.
Yeah.
I think I remember Harley Breen, great Aussie comic. I think he described the way he does it, which I think is the best way. So if he's at a show with a friend of his that he trusts, rather than, because it's too much work to say, oh, can you watch me tonight and tell me if you think of anything funny, like any tags or any ideas.
Sure.
It's like that's too much. It's too broad. So he just picks one bit that he kind of wants to get better. And he goes, hey mate, if you're in the room tonight, I'm going to do this bit about cheese. If you can just listen to the cheese bit, and if you think of anything, just throw me a line. So they only have to listen to a little bit. They only have to think about a little bit. But yeah, I like a lot. Most comedians don't work with other people, and it's kind of silly because you'd have.
Well, it's funny. We do on TV, right? We have punch up comedians. They'll always bring a punch up group of comedians to come, especially on sitcom, to come punch on a pilot. They'll punch up the pilot for sure. Do you?
We're just self-flagellating. No, I must suffer on my own in my art because I'm telling my own story. What could anyone ever know?
No one could possibly understand where I'm good.
I'm going to talk about my vasectomy. No one has ever talked about genitalia on stage.
I'm the first person to do a dick joke. Yeah. It's a risky stuff.
Whoa. Steady on, Magic.
This is actually what I like about the Virgin Cruise is that it's the only cruise you'll ever work, I think, where there's no censorship. It doesn't. No, I mean, you have to censor yourself. If you want to do political jokes, that can sometimes go wrong, right?
Yeah.
But it's up to you. Like, there doesn't seem to be any censorship, which is interesting because once you have the freedom, you don't necessarily use it.
No, well, I mean, I haven't done other cruise ships, so I haven't really been censored.
Spoiled.
Yeah, I realise everyone's told me you're ruined for everything else once you've done this.
Yeah,
because it's a weird mix. Because I'm sure it's the same for Magic. They want you to be clean on other cruise lines.
Yes.
Because they're like, there might be a 6-year-old in the audience. But you're like, well, I can do clean jokes without swearing or being sexual. But those are still not jokes for 6-year-olds.
Right.
Do you know, I mean, there's still jokes for adults about adult things. They're just clean.
Yes.
But children are not going to, do you want me to do jokes for kids? That's an entirely separate thing.
Stand up for kids.
So I just don't know that, stand up for kids is popular in the UK and people are great at it. Doesn't suit me at all. I don't know what to do. I'll wait until my kids are 10 years old, and then I will know
running material
what they actually find funny.
Yeah, but then you're dad, and then either they're going to think everything that you say is funny or nothing. Yeah. But I was thinking that I think the bonus about doing this ship in particular is that you're not going to come off this ship after doing a run with, for want of a better term, there's a friend of mine who calls it the stink of a cruise ship magician, right?
Yeah.
Which is that your act has been shaved, rounded, homogenized for the most sensitive audience member.
Yeah, or just the broadest, because your audience will have 12 different nationalities in it.
Yes.
They're from all different places. There's no unifying, make fun of the local crap part of town because everyone in the audience is from the same place.
Yeah.
There's on these you've got a lot of Americans who are a very different audience from audiences in the rest of the world. Less willing to have fun made of their jobs. I don't know if that's a Protestant work ethic thing or they're really worried about offending their jobs because their jobs cover their health care. I don't know what it is.
That's an interesting.
Or their work is certainly, for Americans, it seems work is more a part of their identity that they are less willing to laugh at than Brits or Aussies or Kiwis who are like, I do my job. Yeah, it's a piece of shit, but
so it's like a class culture almost, like they're afraid of they don't want to be judged.
I don't know the origin of it.
I haven't really noticed that. That's interesting.
Sensitive people.
the reason I want to talk about comedy and all of this stuff is because how you approach it, I think, and then when you were talking about how Stuart Lee does it, which I can't wait to get his books, about how you approach it is always good for us to learn these ideas, because how we approach writing our own material, and I think more magicians should.
Yeah.
You've worked with a lot of magicians.
A few.
And what are your observations? I'm not going to lead you on this, but you don't have to mention any names.
Steve Valentine is superb.
Piece of shit.
No,
there you go.
You are superb. What I would say is, if you're doing a 45-minute show, cram in as many tricks as you can possibly fit on the ship. I'm sick and tired of 3 tricks in 45 minutes. I appreciate they are expensive to buy. My jokes are free to write. They still need to be trialed at unpaid new material nights that cost me money to get to.
Yeah.
But fit more tricks in.
Fit more tricks in.
People want magic. Unless my God, you've got to be funny to fill in.
I don't know. I know a guy in England who just got fired off a cruise ship because he's really, really funny, but he does like 3 or 4 tricks, and they were like, we want a magician. And he's like, it's like getting standing ovations, but it's like,
it's difficult because I know like there is, and there's a science to it that I'm sure I am ignorant to, of like, you have to sell the trick a certain amount, and that's tough because comedians are specifically trying to be themselves or a version of themselves unless they're a character. You kind of have to convince people or believe to a certain extent that you have mystical powers. Do you think that's what you do? But then I see like Piff the Magic Dragon, and I think that's a perfect crossing point between a comedian personality and a magician personality. Yeah. And he's just deadpan. It gets rid of the ick that magicians have, whether it's the bow tie magician.
What do you think the ick is? Is the,
I don't know. Well,
the sparkly waistcoat?
The sparkly waistcoat, the very camp persona for someone who isn't gay.
Okay.
Or those like are kind of old-fashioned and kitschy now. I guess now it would be I've mentioned name, the Chris Angel-esque.
Okay. Like the goth posy, lots of eyeliner.
As a great comedian Nick Sampson did, I think they're the kind of guys that you look at and think that they probably pretend they're allergic to latex, which I think is. But again, it is difficult because you guys have to sell that you have.
It's a weird thing.
There's something beyond yourself.
You never see a magician really, on the whole, walk on stage and go, "I have mystical powers." Most of the time, the closest you get to that is, "I snap my fingers and it happens," or like a little bloke like that, and There's nothing particularly original that sells you having magical powers. I mean, and no one in the audience is going to believe you do. So it's always a big like, what is it that we do? Because a mentalist will come out, like you've seen mentalists, and they're all like, just want you guys to know that I may or may not have mental powers, and what I do is it's all psychology. You could do it with a lot more training, which is it's like bullshit.
Well, that's what you're saying without saying it, isn't it? Because I mean, you're implying you've got mystical, but it's not that the powers are supernatural. It's like you've got skills that have taken years to hone that these people don't understand, which I guess is kind of the opposite of a comedian. Is just like, I'm just like you. I am just myself. I am just normal, but funny.
Observing things that we've all observed. There's a guy in England called Gary Delaney. Oh my God, he's so funny. His one line, he reads off like tons of them off a clipboard online, and you cannot. And I think and he really emphasizes to me the similarities between comedy and magic. And you don't want people to figure out what's going to happen at the end.
Yeah.
And the same with the joke, right? If you can figure out the punchline, if the misdirection isn't strong enough,
it's just a surprising end to sentences.
Yeah, and
that's all comedy.
That's all it is. Yeah, and then that triggers the cerebral cortex at some point. Right? You're a criminologist.
Not a neurologist. I don't know the physiology of comedy. Lots of people have written books. I think Jimmy Carr and a scientist wrote a book on sort of the psychology or the physiology of jokes and comedy and what's its sociological function. I don't know.
There is an interesting thing that if people like Delaney and Jimmy Carr who stand and deliver jokes, and you as an audience member, you accept that that's the reality that you're in, versus say Bill Burr who's having a conversation and it seems spontaneous and it's just and it's so interesting. And I think in magic, we need more of that variety. How are we going to present?
Well, one-liner comedians can get away with more, it feels like, because their jokes are algorithms. Not that they don't have personality in them, obviously, but like but you accept that it's not real. It's not what they really think.
Yeah.
In the way that, like Bill Burr or something, like it is just a conversation with a mate. It is a podcast. It is a banter in the car at midnight home from a late show or whatever. And so it seems much more personal to them, even if they're a character.
That's
Whereas
stuff
a one-liner
that we would always say,
like they're a great one-liner comics, who the name is escaping me now, which is appalling. So he's brilliant.
Stephen Wright.
No, well, Stephen Wright again, like that. I mean, that is a character, but is him. But like they're ones that they'll do jokes about their grandfather, but they will mention 12 different grandfathers in different jokes,
right?
Because the truth of it is irrelevant.
It doesn't matter.
It's wordplay. It's a magic trick. It doesn't need to be real.
Magicians have that problem, I think, when their whole concept of patter or is to say, I was in China once and I got this prop. It's almost like you want to do a show where every time you pick up a prop, it's like, I was in Germany once and I got this prop.
Yeah. Well, you've spent money on it. You got to oversell it. It's got to be mystical, man. I found this in the bin. See, that would feel more interesting to me.
Yeah. This was in the trash outside the back of a magic shop, and I thought, I'll see what I can do with it.
Maybe that's because we comedians need to be more self-deprecating. So we can't, like someone, you went to China and did it. You think you're hot shit? Did you? No, I found it. My friend Tom Crosby, who straddles the line, is a memory performer, Rubik's Cube guy, is brilliant.
Brilliant guy, yeah.
But he tells the story, the difference between comedians and magicians in the way they talk about shows. And he said a magician will be like, so I was on stage, 3,000 people. I looked in my bag. The Rubik's Cube is supposed to be solved, and it's not solved. Oh my God, it's not solved. And not only that, the card, this isn't the card I forced on them. Where the fuck's the card gone? And then I was like, oh no, this is going to be the worst thing ever. The thing's not solved. The card's gone. What am I going to do? And then somehow I just managed to distract the audience. Like a bat flew into the theatre and I managed to quickly solve the Rubik's Cube and change out the card. And oh my God, at the end, it was amazing. It all worked out. Oh my God, I was so thankful. And he's like a comedian's version of that. I was on stage and I looked down and no, I'd forgot. I've got a callback coming up, but I forgot to do the joke that the callback calls back to. It's never going to work. Oh my God, this is the end to the show and I've ruined it. And then I shat myself. So,
I died a death.
Yeah, magicians, it always works out.
And they always get a standing O, by the way. It's always like, I've got standing ovations all week long. No, they're fucking getting out of the theatre, right?
Yeah.
But it is so true. I was watching Hacks, which you're going to watch because you're about to do a crossing from
9 straight sea days. I will have time to spare.
You've got to watch Hacks. It's an amazing TV series. Jean Smart plays this old-time comedian who's now in Vegas. She had a career at one point, and she gets like a young Gen Z writer, and so you can imagine the conflict between how they approach comedy. What the Gen Z kind of contemptuously calls punchline comedy versus kind of observation and talking about her life. And she convinces her at one point to do some new material. This whole I've been doing the same act for 30 years. So maybe it's time to do some new material. She does the new material. I'm not giving anything away about the plot for the series, but she basically says it bombed. But she goes, fucking loved it. I loved it. I felt alive. I felt visceral. So I was watching that this week and I've got this new bit with the mirror. And I'm like, you know what? She's right. You've got to be braver. You've got to like do new material. You've got to slot it in. And I was doing a show like 3 or 4, the beginning of this week actually. And the show is going gangbusters. And I'm like, 2/3 of the way in, and I'm like, you know what? This would be a great place. It's not a brand new trick, but it's kind of a new handling. I'm like, yeah, I'll give this a shot. For 3 minutes, everyone just stared at me with like this quizzical look. Like, we don't understand what he's doing, and we don't understand what he's saying. And then I managed to get them all back for the cards to pocket, and I got a standing ovation.
Yeah, there we go.
But really, that feeling of that one trick bombing was the worst fucking. And I was like, no, it doesn't feel good. I don't like feeling. I'm not Norm, I'm not like. Norm always used to say he loved bombing. He loved watching the audience get uncomfortable and having that visceral thing. But it's not for me.
Well, one other thing is we always hear the stories of the 1 or 2 mercurial geniuses like Norm or something, or like James Acaster talking about, I bombed a lot. But like it's like I was doing my own thing. I was committed to my own thing. And the fact is, there are one or two of those that make it big. But those are also all of those nutters that I saw on the first ever open mic 2 weeks before my heat.
Yes.
They all didn't care what the audience thought either, So for everyone who makes it and they find their audience that love them, there are a lot of fucking lunatics who don't last very long. No, I don't like bombing as an awful thing. Especially I feel more so in comedy. I don't know. Maybe because it's like,
well, you have nothing else. I mean, I have a trick. I have magic to hide behind.
I'm myself. They hate me.
They hate me.
They don't like me. They don't like me. They don't like my thoughts about the world. They don't like the things that I
shy
see.
Kid
they don't
from
like
back in Auckland.
Family.
That shy boy come forward. I told you not to speak.
No, I'm fairly relaxed about it now. It happens. Touch wood. There's no wood. It's a ship. Everything's made of steel.
That's the irony of this place. Yeah, and yet it floats.
It does. It happens very rarely now. And now sometimes, if it's old stuff that doesn't work, you go, well, it's worked 99 times out of the last 100. What do they know? New material can sometimes work best the first time you do it, and then you're chasing that nervous energy that made it brilliant the first time. But sometimes, like with your trick, you're so eager with a new joke, or I imagine a new trick, to get to the finale. Yeah. Like, well, we've got to get to the bit that I know will work. Yeah. And you can either rush through the setups. People are looking at you confused. Maybe you're like, got to quick get to the finding the card. So you rush through the setup. So that people don't laugh if they're confused, and they don't like a magic trick if they're confused. So you rush through the setup to it. 'Cause you're like, I've got to get to the laugh point, the punchline, and then you don't take the time to set it up properly, and then you've killed it in the cradle before it had an opportunity to succeed.
And then you're like, why don't they understand what I'm saying?
But then the lovely bit is, once you get a punchline that works, or a trick that's got a great finale, then I can't remember which comedian it was, but he talks about, once I've got that, then I can just take it for a walk. Just put the lead on the joke, the story, take it for a walk. No matter if it goes badly, if it goes terribly, if the audience get awkward, they get distracted. I've always got a big punchline I know's coming up, so I can just stretch my legs.
I feel that's what Connolly was saying.
Yeah.
What I think he was saying is because he always adds a little bit. Once he knows where he's going with something, now he's going to add a little bit more every night and keep it alive.
Well, no, because
the problem is we have to do 45 minutes, or in your case, you've got your 45, and we should actually.
I just did it this afternoon. I did it an hour before. Finished an hour before I came to see you.
You're very relaxed.
Cheeky bit of a standing O myself.
Did you get a standing ovation? Oh, that's. You see now,
I shat myself. I wasn't very
I had a finale where I deliberately shat myself. Actually, a friend of mine who's a magician, he wasn't this ship, he was on another ship, and he had bad sushi right before he went on. And he did actually shit himself on stage on a cruise ship. I think he should talk about it in his show, but he doesn't. Yeah. He doesn't do Virgin that much. So when you approach writing, I want to talk about the setup here on the ship as well, because it can be challenging and educational for people to hear about. I think when you write a joke, and now when I create it, I write the patter out. I've got like a final draft, and I literally write it out like it's a script. I'm like, Steve grunts to the center of the stage, grabs a prop, goes to the center of the microphone.
So showbiz. So I've worked with a lot of scripts in my time. What can I say? I'm very comfortable with final draft.
Yes, actually. And then I can copyright the fuck out of that so it doesn't get ripped up.
Wise.
But seeing the structure of the trick, I think a lot of the time it's because I can see where the longer bits of exposition are, and I need to figure how to make that entertaining. When you write, how do you write?
Not like that.
Boom. Was that not the perfect response? I loved Matt's answer to that. This is the end of part one. That's right. It's a two-parter. I want to thank Matt because, he did come and spend like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours chatting on my balcony, chatting about comedy and his approach to comedy. And the reason that I thought this was very important for everyone to hear is because as entertainers or speakers, or just when you want to present yourself in public, even if you don't do magic, having an approach to an audience, having an approach to comedy, to humor is very important because it it forces you to connect with the crowd and think about the vibe and the people that are in the room. One of the great things we're about to get into in part 2 of this interview, if you come back next week, you'll hear it, is we're going to be talking about not only Matt's approach to writing comedy, but his friend's approach to writing comedy, how he grows a routine, and most importantly, the major reason that I wanted to chat with him on Magicians Only, crowd work. Now, we've seen a lot about crowd work on Facebook. A lot of people like Carissa are doing great with crowd work with their shorts. Working off an audience it seems to be this kind of magical skill that only a few people have. But there are techniques, there are things, there is a framework that you can use. Matt's approach is really interesting to crowd work and also kind of his approach to his audiences. And we're going to get deep into that in part 2. Crowd work is not just you talking to a crowd and doing jokes and making fun of people. It's connecting with people and giving the impression of spontaneity. So when you get people up on stage, when we're doing magic tricks for people, we don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to throw at you. And being able to handle it with grace and humor and a little bit of kindness, I think is the most important thing in the world. So a lot of people just don't know how to approach it. Matt's advice is golden, and we're going to be getting to that in part 2. So don't forget, Magicians Only is sponsored by Magic on the Go at magiconthego.com. Almost 1,000 tricks that you can carry around in your pocket so that you can kind of learn magic on the go. That's why it's called Magic on the Go. For example, there's a wonderful routine called the Bifid Aces. Have you heard of the Bifid Aces? It's I think probably the greatest self-working card trick in the world. There are people that I know who have sent me, there are members of Magic on the Go actually, who have sent me emails and messages saying that they use it all the time. Billy Kidd uses it at every gig that she does. There's a chap by the name of Steve, I won't say his last name for privacy, but he's a member of Magic on the Go. And he just sent me a message saying that he uses it all the time. It's an amazing routine. And then I took the Bifid Aces and we grew it into this massive playlist, all of these different variations. It's an incredible kind of playlist and in-depth dive into probably the greatest self-working 4-ace trick in the world. Also, if you like doing that trick where a card is chosen and penetrates through a handkerchief or a bandana or a table napkin, the entire cloth project, which is kind of, I think, over 50, I might be wrong, maybe it's over 30 videos altogether, detailing methods and ways of doing the trick, including my own personal version that Peter Duffy gave a massive thumbs up to. I was very proud of that. I have a very visual version of making cards penetrate through handkerchiefs. That is also on Magic on the Go. Cards to Pocket, 120 videos. Egg bag. Everything you've ever wanted to know about the egg bag trick and probably were afraid to ask is on Magic on the Go. There's over 80 videos on that. Making stuff suspend. If you want to put your fingers on a knife and have it magically cling to your fingers, or a glass of water, or a jar of rice, or put a knife into a jar of smoke and make it suspend. Imagine that. I close one of my shows with it. That is all also on Magic on the Go. There's an entire playlist on suspensions, and there's moves, and there's card tricks and coin tricks. There's a beautiful coin vanish it's all there. There's handlings and tips for Eddie Joseph's shattering coins and silver balls. Did you know that is one of my favorite tricks from when I was a childhood? Imagine putting 10 coins on your hands and a whole bunch of other stuff, marbles and metal and glass, and you close your hand like this and you put a little disc on top, and it's all very kind of isolated. Your sleeves are rolled up and there's a little disc, and you put a little bit of paper on there, and when you apply a match to it, the paper goes whoosh, and when you open up your hand, all the little bits are still there, the steel ball bearing, the glass marble, the piece of paper, but the coins, 10 $half or dollars if you've got slightly larger hands, those coins have just melted away. They're gone. It's an amazing routine. I learned it when I was a kid. I did it for years, so I can show you the correct way of doing that trick. And that is also on Magic on the Go. Listen, there's too much. I would highly recommend you just go subscribe. Instead of spending a couple of $100 on that latest electronic gadget, why don't you just put that money into a year? So I think it's less than $25 a month into a year of subscribing on Magic on the Go, and support the project, because it's we're growing this hopefully into the largest online database of magic videos that there are. All taught by yours truly. So anyway, thanks again, Matt. I'll see you next week. Come for the magic, stay for the crowd work.